Have you ever questioned all you thought you knew about someone you adored? What would you do if a single piece of information destroyed your trust and revealed a network of lies? For me, it all began with a routine hospital visit that led to an unexpected discovery. But before we get started, be sure you subscribe because I'm on a mission to get 1,000 subscribers, and your support can help me get there. Let's plunge in. Lauren, 41, and I, a 40-year-old male, married for 6 years. We weren't a couple that shouted love from the rooftops, but mutual understanding and respect existed. I assumed I was married to a mature woman who was not needy or sought attention now and then. I was mistaken. Lauren fell seriously ill, shattering my delusion. At first, it appeared to be a typical case of food poisoning. She was constantly puking and couldn't keep any food or water down. She appeared pale, frail, and dehydrated. She was not prepared to go to the hospital. She expressed fear of needles and the IV drips they implanted. I did my best to nurse her back to health, but after a day and a half, her condition deteriorated. She required professional care, and despite her concerns, I hurried her to the hospital. I was scared as they wheeled her into the ER. I held her and told her she would be all right and was there for her. I pledged not to abandon her and would not return home without her. Even in that moment, I meant it. Who knew I couldn't keep my pledge to stand by her? The symptoms were generic, but I experienced a sinking sensation in my stomach. I guess your body can sense the impending calamity. I had no idea what horrors the following 48 hours would bring. Lauren's condition stabilized within a few hours, but she had become too frail and pale. Doctors wanted to know if there was an underlying disease causing her diarrhea. The reports were expected to arrive in 2 days, after which she would be treated or discharged. I took excellent care of her and never left her bedside. After 12 hours, the doctor lowered her medicine, and she became dehydrated again. Doctors became apprehensive that there was more to her illness. On the 3rd day, a nurse handed me a sealed envelope and told me the doctor would explain everything shortly. Lauren was asleep in her bed, hooked up to an IV drip, and appeared fragile. I'm not sure why I dreaded opening that envelope, but I was also impatient to wait for the doctor, so I did it myself. Initially, the words did not register. My brain refused to process them. Positive for chlamydia. I froze and stared at the report. A million thoughts raced through my mind. I kept telling myself, this has to be a mistake. Perhaps the samples were mixed up. I recall being so nervous that I broke into cold sweats. I did a Google search. The answers I received were different from what I wanted to know then. I'm sure curious about how long I was requested to go to the doctor's cabin because I was lost in thinking. My legs shivered. I pointed to that report section and questioned him. This can't be true, right? There has to be some mistake. The physician responded, I'm sorry, but the tests are accurate. We'll start treatment immediately. She must finish the course of antibiotics. My skull felt as if it were splitting apart. My wife had an STD. The ramifications were obvious, but I wasn't prepared to embrace them. Not yet. When Lauren awoke, I handed her the report without speaking. Her face grew ashen as she read it, and tears streamed down her face. She sputtered, I can explain. I couldn't help but raise my voice and push her to explain, since I was desperate to hear how she contracted an STD throughout this marriage. We haven't had sex for months because somehow you're never in the mood. How would you be? You were snacking outside, didn't you? I didn't care whether she was sick or we were in the hospital. I wanted an answer. It didn't matter to me that she could barely talk hours before. I was praying hard for her recovery, but suddenly her look repulsed me. She broke down, sobbing furiously and apologizing. Her cries and apologies did not make me feel better. I kept encouraging her to speak up. I'm not proud of it, but I wanted to hit her head and shatter it. I wanted an explanation, but she was only doing waterworks. I pressed her to tell the truth, and after much hesitation, she finally said that she had been randomly hooking up with males whenever she had an opportunity. Most of them were her clientele. She is a hairdresser. I urged her for information. I wanted to know everything. How many? Where have they gone? What's the count? And more importantly, why wasn't I enough for her? To the majority of my questions, her immediate answer was tears. But after interrogating her to the core, I finally obtained all my answers. Apparently, She befriended the men who came in for haircuts, gently exchanged information without her coworkers or supervisor knowing, and then hooked up with them. She made it plain to them that there would be nothing but sex, and the males agreed. When she explained the specifics, my blood ran cold. It's just something I do sometimes. It's my guilty pleasure. I know it's wrong, but I couldn't stop. I felt as if the floor had been pulled out from beneath me. I screamed, "You've been cheating on me, sleeping with random strangers. How long has this been going on?" She admitted it had been going on for a couple of years. In her defense, she said she only did it while she was drunk and avoided having sex with me for a week afterward, as if it would make me feel better. She had the nerve to reply, "I never meant to hurt you." The hookups didn't mean anything to me. I don't remember how I felt about those experiences. I only know I love and want to marry you. Her remark made my fury boil. I said, getting up so quickly that the chair collapsed over, "Never meant to hurt me. You've been risking my health, trust, and our marriage for years, and you didn't mean to hurt me? What about the germs that could have been passed on to me?" I ranted my heart out and called her every name under the sun. She jeopardized herself and me for the sake of fleeting pleasure. She asked me to allow her to explain. Her justification was that she utilized protection to make herself feel comfortable. She slept around hoping she'd never be caught. She reached for my hand, but I pushed back, saying, "You're disgusting. I can't even look at you right now." I stormed out of the room, leaving her sobbing behind. My doctor had asked me to get tested. I can't tell you how afraid I felt. There was a reasonable probability I was infected, possibly asymptomatic. I supplied my blood sample and stormed out of the hospital as they prolonged her stay to treat the illness. I drove about aimlessly for hours, rehashing every detail of the admissions, betrayal, falsehoods, and outright disdain. My phone buzzed with her messages, which I ignored. I could not deal with her just now. I made a plan. I would not let her walk back into my life as if nothing had occurred. I packed up all of her belongings, her clothing, makeup, and ridiculous collection of scented candles, and threw them in her basement vehicle. I contacted a cleaning agency to sanitize the entire apartment. Call me crazy, but I felt like she had spread germs all over my house. I wanted every trace of her gone. Then I looked for a lawyer and scheduled an online consultation to discuss my case. I was determined not to spend another day with this horrible woman. I never showed up at the hospital after that. I even received a call from the hospital requesting payment for her medical fees so that her treatment could continue. I couldn't care less about her existence. She left me angry voicemails, accusing me of being a lousy spouse. She also claimed that we had promised to take care of each other in sickness, and that I was betraying my promise by abandoning her. I was literally fuming. She's the one talking about vows. What happened to my commitment not to take other men away from me? Why didn't she consider this commitment before exposing her legs to every loser out there? I cannot tell you how pathetic the gaslighting was. On the day she was meant to be discharged, my phone was inundated with calls from her in the hospital. I disregarded them all. I knew they were phoning to ask me to pay the bills that had exceeded her insurance coverage. I received a copy of the bill in my email. I knew she didn't have enough money in her account to pay, so why should I chip in? She put herself into this situation, and I was not going to pay for her treatment, not in this lifetime. She called a colleague to help her, and he even dropped her off at my place. When they arrived, I did not open the door. Her keys were inside because she had not brought them when I admitted her, so she could not unlock the door. I yelled through the door that she was not permitted inside my house and that her belongings were in the basement. She wept and beat, requesting to be allowed inside the flat. After a time, her colleague drove away, leaving her at my door. I had to resist the impulse to open the door. She was crying and had nowhere else to go in this situation. She begged for a chance to chat and work things out. She even begged me to have mercy till she recovered, after which I could do whatever pleased. I could not believe she expected me to be sensitive to her condition. Really? You've been sleeping around and getting illnesses, and I'm meant to be sensitive? She ultimately drove out in her car, presumably after gathering her belongings from the basement. Meanwhile, the test results returned negative. I had a short sense of relief, as if I had escaped a bullet. but the fact that she had put me in that situation was unacceptable. I started divorce proceedings and blocked her everywhere. Right now I have no idea where she is or how she is doing. I was tested again, and thank God it was still negative. Lauren did not give up easily. She contacted her parents and told them I had abandoned her at the hospital and booted her out of the house without warning or explanation. They showed up at my place and demanded an explanation. I did not sugarcoat it. I asked them, "Did she tell you the reason? If not, don't you think you should have asked her for the details before appearing in accusation mode? Anyway, now that you're here, let me tell you, your daughter cheated on me. No, she didn't date anyone or fall in love with anyone, but she hooked up with multiple men, got herself an STD, and put my health at risk as well. Did she tell you this? Of course she didn't. How would she? She was a busy port. Her expression of disbelief was priceless. Her mother called her immediately, asking if all of this was genuine. I'm not sure what she said on the other end, but her mother began yelling at her, calling her dumb and stupid. Her father's face became red with wrath. He pulled the phone from her mother's grasp and said, "Do you have no shame in doing such things? On top of that, you lied to us that he had abandoned you. You know what? Wherever you are, stay there. We've got nothing to do with you." He handed the phone back to her and went away. She also followed him, shouting into the phone. When the paperwork was completed, my lawyer contacted Lauren to obtain her address so the papers could be shipped. She shared her home address. When the documents arrived, her mother called and asked me to give her a chance. Lauren, she told me, lived in a motel for a week after I evicted her, but her condition worsened. She begged her mother to preserve her life, and they were forced to take her in. She was sacked from her job because her colleague who followed her home learned about her sickness, and you are aware of the stigma around STDs. She went and told the salon manager. Lauren, of course, blamed me for exposing her, but I wasn't concerned. I would not preserve her reputation after what she had done to me. Her mother asked if I might be kind while she was recovering from her health concerns. She said Lauren was not in a position to go through a divorce because her mental state had deteriorated. She asked if I could postpone the divorce process or help her with medical bills. Lauren lost her job and spent her savings on medical expenditures. She even proposed that we get back together till she is back on her feet. That was an unreasonable request. I mean, her kid went around town effing men, and now that she's effed up, she wants me to take her back. Funny, right? I chuckled angrily, saying she made her bed, and now she has to lie in it. Lauren also sent me a lengthy email with profound apologies. This was the first time she had genuinely apologized. Until now, it was all about gaslighting and playing the victim. She asked for a chance to prove herself and promised to be a better wife. I did not respond to it. She told me she felt like a ghost from her previous existence. She's broke. Her medical expenses are piling up. She doesn't have a job, and her reputation has suffered. She may now be unable to get work in other salons and will be forced to change jobs. Her friends have distanced themselves from her. She is socially isolated. Everyone regards her as some kind of curse. Even her siblings have outcasted her and have not visited their parents since Lauren stayed there. Her father is a conservative man who couldn't bear the shame she brought upon the family. He resents her presence and avoids looking her in the eyes. Her mother is the only one attempting to support her, but the financial hardship also makes her bitter. Despite all of this, she is sinking into depression. So, what can I do about it? She brought it on herself. She sent me several apologetic emails. I believe she is writing these to get rid of her guilt. Perhaps she is lonely and has no one to share her shame with. Her parents continue to contact her, asking whether there is any prospect of reconciliation. She had been sliding into the dark well of sadness. She won't leave her bed for days and doesn't eat, but I know better. Trust, once broken, cannot be rebuilt. Lauren believed she could have her cake and eat it too. She was wrong. Now she is dealing with the consequences of her conduct. Our divorce was finalized. It was a very messy one. Lauren refused to cooperate. She was adamant that she deserved a chance and wished to be treated with respect and compassion due to her health condition. She would frequently break down before the magistrate, vowing to do whatever to save the marriage. I sued her because she endangered my life by exposing me to a fatal infection. In her defense, she said she avoided having sex with me to protect me. She also claimed she was using protection as if it would justify her cheating. It was tricky, but I refused to live with that woman at any cost. I didn't fight for the assets because it would have prolonged the process. She was told to be taken to treatment since she was acting strangely. Her physical health didn't improve right away. It seemed like an excellent sign that she was now coming to her senses and accepting reality. But God, no. She begged me for a chance once she recovered from her ailment, claiming that she was now pure and free of illness. Am I obligated to have her back just because she overcame an STD? I can't tell you how emotionally draining it was to deal with her brother. The saddest aspect is that she received so much compassion for being ill, going through a divorce and suffering from clinical depression. Nobody even tried to comprehend how terrible it was for me. I confronted the betrayal. It's tough for me to accept that my wife didn't think I was enough for her and went about sleeping with other men. She put my health at risk. I needed to pay her alimony. I had to share half of my assets. Why? I decided not to give the unfaithful wife another chance. You can now see how terrible the divorce was. Despite all of this, Lauren continued to drag things out. We were assigned a couples counselor, which was quite helpful. Until then, I had undermined the function of an impartial marriage counselor. Had I known, I would have taken it sooner. He was able to bring the difficulties to light. He guided her through reality and taught her that she had a choice whether or not to succumb to her desire. Similarly, I may choose whether or not to forgive her. She couldn't force me to forgive her and move forward. The part about salvaging the marriage had long since passed. Therefore, it was best if she opened her eyes and accepted reality. So, finally, it's over, and I'm moving on with my life. I feel like I have a new life, yet I'm exhausted from all of the stress and anxiety I've been dealing with. I'm considering disappearing or moving to a new location where no one knows me. I am sick of everything. I'm still seeing a therapist, and I'm hoping to get out of this low phase and begin my life soon. That concludes today's video. If you loved this story or found it informative, please give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments section. Remember to subscribe and enable notifications to get all the updates and a new story. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.